All right, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. We just want to remind everybody about our big contest for 2023. We're going to help find a new writer in comic books. We're partnered with Dream Foundry on this, and just remember the deadline is the end of September to get your stories in. So to kick the show off, my name's Shane.
I'm Paul.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. Let's get this show started.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Comic Book Squares. We're excited for this episode, and thanks for joining us. Mike and Steve, if you guys don't mind just introducing yourselves to our audience and telling us a little bit about your comics universe that you've created here.
Okay. My name is Michael Nunneley, and I founded Omen Comics back in 2018. And it's basically a blend of the world's mythologies and even a few religions together. And it even mixes in some alternate history and even some classic literature to create the universe itself. But the idea is that it's all built around this like mega apocalyptic theme. The idea for the universe actually came from wanting to create a world that all apocalypses could happen at once in. And so that's really what the whole Omenverse thing is about there. We also do, me and Steve also do a podcast called Omen Revelations Podcast, where we talk about movies and we talk about pop culture and television and comics and even our own comics and characters and stuff. But we also have a label called Revelation Comics, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to my man Steve.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm Steve Sellers. I'm the writer on some of the Omenverse titles, mainly White Druid and Michael Nero, and also Guardians of the Lamb. And so from there, we kind of got started for a while. I was brought in at some point after he got started with the whole thing. And then after a while, it's like, okay, how would you like to do a spin-off imprint where basically it's just our passion projects. It's just the things that we want to do that won't fit in the Omenverse. And so that's Revelation Comics. So the idea really is like my main concept is Blitz, which is a superhero title. And that universe is entirely within Revelation Comics and has no connection to Omen at all. Likewise, Mike has his own grimdark horror series called Seder, which is his own thing. It's under the Revelation imprint, but that's his Yeah, and we also have our artist Tazan Awasika, and he has a couple of titles on his own that he works with Mike on, and one of them is Insurrection, which is a Nigerian war story, and the most recent one, which we're hoping, I believe, is next year, but Mike can confirm that, is called Sad, which is Sad and Desperate, and it really kind of deals with kind of like X-Files style conspiracy stuff. Set in Nigeria and dealing with Nigerian legends. So those are the kinds of books that we do there. And in addition, Mike and I also do Blood World for Raincross Press, which is a sci-fi anthology comic, which I believe is supposed to come out later this year or early next year. I'm not sure exactly which. So, those are the kinds of things that we do.
Just to clarify, Sad is set to come out in the middle of this year.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so what you're saying is you've had a pretty busy schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff.
That's great, though. In
addition to a podcast and other stuff we do.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's great. If you guys, I don't know if you guys have seen any of our other episodes, but some of the creators we've talked to, they try so hard to just get one project off the ground, and they're working real hard trying to do that. So we try to shed a little light on that, but it's great that you guys have multiple projects and you guys are able to bring in some other creators and things and do some things that you're doing and, setting up the website you got. And Gallows Men jumped out to me. I see the cover and I'm just like, that's my stuff. I can see that. It's just that whole cover just really grabbed me.
Thank you.
It was a great story. Yeah.
Was it issue 1 or 2 specifically?
Well, both covers, but the first one, I'm the number 1 guy, right? So like, there's number 2, scroll down, there's number 1. So both nice. Great stories. Yeah, great stuff.
Number 1 sets the tone, so yeah.
Nice. The Gallows Men were actually kind of, at least in part, inspired by the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I won't say that I got, but now that you say it, it makes okay. Yep,
Mike
I
is a
love it.
massive Turtles fan.
Yes,
That's awesome.
Yes. You'll notice that each one of them has a different color: the green, the red, and the blue. They each got a different weapon.
Yeah,
You know,
that's awesome. That's
Oh
that's
my
totally
gosh.
homage. I love it. You know, that's great stuff. So have you seen that new Eastman's come out with the Last Ronin? Did you guys see that?
I
A little
Steve
bit,
has
yeah.
checked it out. I think.
It's pretty
Yeah, it is.
fantastic.
It is really interesting. I don't want to spoil it, but I love the idea behind it. You know,
That's
the
awesome.
idea
It's
of
kind of
kind
like
of doing
an
a
old
Dark
man
Knight
book.
type of thing with the Ninja
Yes.
Turtles.
Yeah.
I think it totally makes
Yep.
sense.
There you go.
And I like the turtle that was left. Right, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that wants to look at. I mean, it won't be the one that you think. That's for sure. That wasn't the one that I thought.
No, it wasn't.
So, but enough about that. You guys.
So, so Mike, so being a turtle fan, I guess I was going to ask, which we do. We're always kind of interested to see how you kind of got started. So, Mike and Steve, this question is for both of you. Like, what got you started? Like, was it just reading them, and then you just got more passionate? But how did you get your start in this genre?
Oh well, I mean, I actually wrote my very first comic when I was 12, and I wrote. Granted, they were that first one especially was very derivative. I mean, it was basically Casey Jones and Punisher put together.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For me, I kind of got started with prose when I was 12. You know, I was writing fantasy stuff at the time. I was kind of into Dragonlance at that time. That's kind of where my thing was. But I've always been a comic book fan. In fact, I was huge into X-Men for years and years and years. So
Right.
See it behind you.
Eventually,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And, so eventually I got into fan fiction, and then it was X-Men related stuff, and then it kind of, but it was mainly sort of, I could kind of learn the craft and figure out, what I was doing.
Yeah.
So after a period of doing that, I started doing stuff on my own, and then Mike, brought me in after Omen started, and he's like, yeah, I have this idea for a Magic Sherlock Holmes type of comic. Would you like to do that? So it's like, yeah, and it took me a while to kind of get into it because his world building and all of his notes are huge, and it kind of takes a while to get through them. But I finally did, and it's like, yeah, this is something that looks like a lot of fun to play around with. So
I'm not sure how much I gave him, but it must have been like 20 pages or something like that on my world building
like
notes and my
noveling
character ideas and stuff.
That sounds like homework.
It kind of was. Yeah.
I have been told that my comic book scripts read almost like prose novels with my panel descriptions.
Yeah, we're talking like Alan Moore level of description.
He's working on the beard. I see that.
Yeah, I'm working on it right now. Yeah.
I don't know if you'll
gosh.
reach that level of existentialism.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's great. So how did you guys end up encountering one another? Like Mike started, with you guys working together. Like how did that start?
That actually happened. I used to run an online comic book magazine called the Chico Comic Books page, and we used to we interviewed people, we reviewed comics, we wrote articles, that kind of a thing. And Steve was actually one of the reviewers I had there. And when I started making my own comics and stuff, I actually hit up all the people that I met that work with Omen Comics right now. All were connected to Chico Comics page somehow.
Yeah.
wow!
Steve was my
There you go.
reviewer, so I reached out to him to read. I met Guido Martinez, our letterer, through Chico Comics page, doing interviews and reviews and stuff. Our artist, Tosin Awasika, all of it. Just through that magazine right there. And, we don't do the magazine anymore, but that's really the core that connected everything.
Right.
That's awesome.
Man, that's cool.
So the question I got is, do you still have the comic that you wrote at 12?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
If I had it, I would burn it. You do not write good stuff at 12. I can guarantee you, the stuff that I wrote at 12 does not exist anymore.
Hey, who here wouldn't want to see John Byrne's 12-year-old art or Chris Claremont's 12-year-old script? I mean, you never know, right?
Right. Right? I'd be
That might be
interested
worth
in
auctioning
seeing
as
where
on
Jim
Stubbies
Lee
or
was
something, I
around
don't know.
12.
Jim,
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, did you see how? Did you ever see Alex Ross at like 7 years old? Look where that
Yeah.
guy ended up, right?
I have seen like Alex Ross actually put like his 7-year-old drawing of Spider-Man next to one of his professional works, and you wouldn't believe it was from him.
I know you're. Yeah,
I remember when I was like 12, like I was into the Turtles as well a lot, and like the first comic book I drew was called Green Middle-Aged Samurai Pigs because I want talk about derivative.
I came up with no joke. I once came up with just because I hated dealing with an assignment, I just came up with this idea for Samurai Rabbit. And I didn't realize that Usagi Yojimbo. Right.
I didn't mean it.
Any similarities are purely coincidental, I assure you.
As long as you put that blurb in there,
Ninja Turtles thing was at least less derivative than mine. I just simply took out the mutant and the ninjas in the title and just said teenage ninjas.
Teenage Ninja.
And it's funny because I don't know if you guys have any of those issues from way back, but you look at like that format and that paper they were printed on, you're like, this is like newspaper level stuff, right? Yeah. Like you needed special bags and boards to put, to hold those things together. And it's amazing that stuff got off the ground. And you look at it now, and what's it been? 35 years?
Yeah.
30 something, right? 32.
Yeah.
I think it was, what was it, 84, 85 they came out with the first title?
Yeah, sounds about right, I guess.
Sounds about right, yeah.
It's been a while.
I mean, been a while, and they're still trucking. So you never know. And so with that being said, with you guys being so busy, having so many projects, and obviously with Mike, we reviewed Cider before, and I don't remember if we asked you this, but now that you got Steve here, do you guys make the convention circuit? Do you do things like that? Do you have a table? Do you guys how are you? Other than the podcast and things, or you just rely on that for your?
We do not do conventions at the time. I currently I tried to do this a few years back, and I had all the tickets bought. I had the table ready. I had all the comics printed. I had the money I would need it. I bought the payer, the whole 9 yards, and the whole thing just kind of fell apart. Like I lost my ride and all of that.
And then COVID hit, and that just caused a mess.
Yeah, COVID was like a.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, it even after COVID, it just felt like it was too much of an investment for a potential gain.
It is. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
That's what we've heard from a lot of folks is like, the conventions are maybe great to go and meet other creators, but as far as selling the books, it's not as, from what we've heard, it hasn't been as done as well for people. So I guess it's an investment for networking, but
right.
Yeah, and a couple of the guys we've talked to have said, they'll hit a couple of the really, really big ones and try to get their name out there and try to share some material, but it's not worth convention chasing or anything like that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, sometimes the big ones, you could get lost in the shuffle, right? And some of those large ones. And so, the artist rows on some of those, there could be 50 people along artist row. That's, everybody's trying to, just trying to communicate with folks and trying to tell them, what the little spiel about their book. And so I imagine it can be very challenging, to kind of, compete with a lot of the other indie folks. So.
And there's also a move towards online anyway, and and I don't think it'll ever get rid of totally the need for brick and mortar sort of conventions, but I think it may make it easier for certain companies to do things that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, see a lot of companies doing all the different conferences and stuff online, or have the online option, to join different things.
Yeah.
So we go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we were looking through the titles, and we've been able to flip through some stuff. But is there anything upcoming you want to talk about that maybe isn't on the website, or anything that you haven't, that maybe just in its infancy? You don't have to go into too much detail. Obviously, you want to leave a lot to the imagination. But is there something you guys are working on now that you're looking forward to getting out there?
Well, our current project is the Raincross Press thing. But I mean, the thing we got going on this year specifically is that SAD comic that we mentioned earlier, which it's an acronym, by the way. It stands for Sad and Desperate.
Yep. Right. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that book really digs into Nigerian mythology and all kinds of conspiracy theories that you wouldn't believe how far they stretch, kind of a thing. It's got crazy kind of monsters and the whole nine yards. Our artist Tosin Awasika, he wrote the thing and then I scripted it. And then of course he does all the art for it and everything. I'm really looking forward to that one. That is one crazy book.
So that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I'm several issues ahead on Blitz at this moment. So, at least in terms of the scripting. So, at some point I'm hoping that, once we start really getting back online, we'll be able to kind of put those out.
Yeah.
So that's the SAD. What was the driver for that? Because it seems kind of a little bit specific. Like there's a lot of different backgrounds out there. So why that particular one? I guess.
Well, I think for that you'd actually have to talk to our artist Tosin Awasika, as he wrote it. Yeah. But it is very Nigerian in the fact that even I noticed in scripting it and stuff that there were just things in like how they talk to other people, how they refer to women and specifically, little things like that. It was very un-American. So I'm like, he would write something and I'd be like, well, that sounds a little weird. Are you sure you want to say that? And like that kind of a thing. But
if I were to give you an example like that, most people would recognize. I would say if you think about The Witcher and how all of that is influenced by Polish mythology, and the Polish cultural perspective, it's kind of like that, except in Nigeria, and with a different subject matter.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely piques my interest. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
Now, how did you guys get connected with him as a creator? Was he
I interviewed
part of that
him
group
for Chico Comics page?
Okay.
And I struggled finding artists initially. I must have went through, I want to say like 4 or 5 before I came to Tosin. And I finally said, look, man, this is my budget. This is what I can afford. This is what I want done. Can you work with me here? And he said, yeah. And we've been working together ever since.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and we've talked with other creators about that too, about that synergy that you need. You're trying to create something, and this is not a winning lotto ticket, right? And it's not it's not the golden pearly gates or whatever, right? This is to create, right? That's got to be the desire, and obviously you guys have that because you got some really good work on here. And we've seen some really good work by some other creators, but I think what sets you guys apart is it seems like you've been able to kind of build a network and a background, and get to this point now where a lot of creators are trying to do it on their own, and it's just circumstantial, right? I don't think it's intentional. They're not trying to isolate themselves. They're just trying to make it happen. They try to get connected with folks, and they try to retain, if you're the writer or you're the one driving it, you're trying to retain control, which makes sense, right? It's a creator-driven process, and you're not working for the big 2 or big 3, right? So you own these characters. But you got a really good stable of folks that it seems that you're able to really work together and come up with some pretty good stuff. So that's a great start. I mean, kudos to you guys for getting that set up, and obviously capitalizing on the the digital aspect.
Synergy is actually a great word for how we work together. We have developed this for instance, with Tosin living in Nigeria, our artist, and our letterer living in Argentina. We can't. It's not like we can just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I got to talk to you about this page." It doesn't work that way. So,
somebody's in bed.
Right. And so, one of the things I really appreciate about working with the crew that I work with is that I'm able to write down what I want on the page, and 9 times out of 10, but 9.9 times out of 10, it comes out better than it was when I intended it. Like I write it, and like I told you, I write a detailed script. I'm talking about, and I want a little dot on this circle right here, like that kind of stuff. And they're able to take
I didn't
that
say
and,
blue, I said royal blue.
That's right.
Royal
That's
blue.
right.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not nearly as detailed as him, but Tozen usually will give me back a lot more than I gave him, and I'm kind of writer who takes the Chris Claremont approach a little bit. I like to write for my artists, so the more that I know about what works for Tozen and what doesn't, I'll usually tailor the scripts to him, and that kind of helps the process out.
There you go.
Well,
Nice.
and like you said, Mike, the synergy. Eventually, you guys get to the point where he knows you'll like what he produces, and he can take what you're writing. Stevie can take what you're writing, and he can interpret it. And he already probably has a feeling now. You guys have you've given him the green light on things, and so it just sort of fits, right? Everything's dovetailing together.
Right. There was some stuff we had to talk about within the first issue or two there. It's just it's like the pieces just kind of fell together with the group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really just I'm humbled by the how well this whole thing works. I couldn't have dreamed this to be better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think a
He's
lot
done
of
pretty
folks
much everything we've done on the Omenverse, everything we've done on Revelation. He's even doing something for Raincross, so he follows us everywhere pretty much.
We even
Nice.
got our
It
letter
seems-
Guido in on Raincross. That was cool.
Yep, as well. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it seems like timing is very, it really seems to be critical, right? I mean, you can plug away to find a good team of folks to work with. And then just all of a sudden, and to kind of sounds like you kind of had that from the beginning, just getting to know each other and then, moving over into what you have now. That's very, very fortunate. I had a question for both of you. Mike, you talked for Mike, you talked a little about turtles. And so maybe besides Eastman and Layard, was there anyone else that influenced you? And Steve, same with you. It sounded like you were kind of an X-Men fan. Was there other folks that kind of that you really just enjoyed their work?
Oh man, that is a long list. I will say offhand, Jim Starlin is a big one.
Starlin,
Grant Morrison. Nice. I love his All-Star Superman. That's awesome.
His Green Lantern.
A lot of Alan Moore's different works. A certain amount from Garth Ennis, but mainly like the war comics. Not so much the superhero comics, but mainly the war comics. I like the level of realism and characterization he puts to those. So there's definitely a grounded sense to those stories that you don't really find there. Those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about. But it's just like I take a little bit from so many different things, including like video games and movies and TV series and books I've read over the years and prose books. That it's kind of like hard to pin down like too many significant ones. Oh, and Rod Serling. I'm a huge Rod Serling fan.
Oh yeah.
For me, I suppose the most obvious influence on my work has got to be horror. I'm a huge horror fan. I've been watching horror movies since I was 8 years old. I think you'll notice, particularly, I suppose, in my graphic violence in the comics, that there's a particular scene where somebody is given a Colombian necktie that I actually take a whole page to describe there. She slowly pulls his tongue out of his throat and everything. But
I read that one, Mike. I read that one. I remember.
So I mean,
the NSFW is like a giveaway. I'm like, they're speaking my language.
He has a sense of the macabre.
Yes. I suppose my other huge influences have got to be mythology. I'm mythology really across the board. But really, I suppose my favorites have got to be Greek and Norse mythology. I also really like Celtic mythology, particularly Irish mythology. And you'll see a lot of that in Omen comics. You'll note that even Seder dealt with Norse mythology, right? So I mean, there's a lot of that in there. In fact, most of what I write ends up having mythology involved in it somewhere. Somehow there's a mythological character, or I'm playing off a mythological story, or something along those lines.
I think Mike too. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think because you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, so I think that, right, there was a lot of that even while playing, those types of games, right?
Well, I mean, there's certainly some of that. Although I didn't start playing Dungeons and Dragons until last year. I mean,
I go back a lot farther with that. I used to play a lot of second edition back when I was a teenager.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of that, and then Dragonlance was my big thing. And then Forgotten Realms for a while. I drifted out of it for a while because my group fell apart and I moved. So there really wasn't a group. So it's like if I wanted to do that, I had to play like Baldur's Gate and things like that on video games. So, but we've recently got back into it as of last year, and we actually do a podcast where we do that. So
that's awesome.
It hasn't been lost on that. In terms of like how it influences Omen, I would definitely say that the cast that we put together for Guardians of the Lamb was definitely based to a certain extent around the standard D&D adventuring party.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think the advantage of those games that the role playing aspect really forces you to kind of improvise on the fly. You're able to just, what I mean. And I think when you're writing, you have to, and even as an artist, you have to be able to do that. You might be kind of going along one way and you realize maybe that doesn't work, but you can pivot. You're able to pivot and maybe take the story in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to successful story writing and comics is show me something I haven't seen before. I know the heroes win usually. Sometimes bad guys win. The heroes always win. But show me something I haven't seen. Well, show me something I'm not expecting. That's all I'm asking. If you show me something unexpected, I'll stick with you.
That's the hard thing though with Dungeons and Dragons, because if you're the DM and your friends try to pull some shit on you while they're playing and you got to pivot,
and we did have a moment like that. I mean, I ended up having to change like my character a fair amount because the DM kind of threw in something I wasn't expecting, and it's just like, okay, my character's not going to go along with that. So it ended up being like an entire storyline where I'm practically changing my subclass.
Yeah.
So it worked out really well. I can't complain.
That's awesome.
Steve has talked about this. Steve has talked about this a little bit when we've talked about writing before, but he has a way of writing that where he's talked about how he writes his characters can actually surprise him with what they will do and stuff. And me, I am, as we've discussed, I'm too detailed. I know what I'm going to be doing 5 years from now on this date, kind of a thing.
I embrace the happy accidents, and I kind of like to lead with the carrot.
Yeah.
I like to give characters reasons to do why they're doing these things. You want them to.
Yeah.
Somehow it works.
While there's a lot of the Omenverse to go, I'm thinking the story will end somewhere around 70 issues, between all the titles. But I already have that story plotted out. We already know everything that's going to happen. That's how obsessed and detailed I am.
I see Steve shaking his head. He's like, 70 pages.
I love that kind of writing in genre stuff, because if you know where the end is, then it doesn't feel all chaotic in between. You watch some of the shows like Lost. They just wrote mysteries to be mysteries, and when they try to close it all up, it was a bunch of bullshit. In my personal opinion, at the very end. But if you have it all mapped out, I think that definitely helps you keep your story going, forward. It makes sense as you're going through.
On that note, that's actually how I write stories. I start from the end, I work my way back to the middle, and then I go from the beginning and build it forward. But I get this scenario, like with the Omenverse. I pictured what would the world look like if every apocalypse imagined happened all at once. And I just kind of pictured this desolate, barren, just destroyed world and everything. And I'm like, okay, how did we get here? And that's how I built up the Omenverse.
Yeah. I mean, awesome. I think I read once that Kirkman, when he was doing The Walking Dead, people had asked him, he said, I know how it ends. I'm not going to tell anybody, but I know how it ends. I know what caused the apocalypse. I know what caused the zombies. I'm not going to say anything. I think finally he did years later, now that the books ended and the show is coming to an end. I know they're coming out with new spinoffs, but he came out and said it was a space spore. He never showed it. He didn't need to, right? He knew what that story was going to be. He knew that 10 years down the road, he knew where it was going to lead and all that. So that's probably better than the alternative, just winging it issue to issue sometimes, right?
I really
Yeah.
wanted there to be a sense of continuity. I didn't want to take off in one way and then just kind of do a Claremont, leave the story sitting there for a few years, and we may or may not ever come back to it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that is one of the flaws with them.
So, Mike, do you? I was just curious because it sounds like Steve, like he was talking about, like, you know, those creative accidents and different things. So, Mike, it sounds like you're very detailed. So, do you ever like see yourself pivoting, or is it an opportunity to almost create a universe within another universe? If you wanted to take, let's say, you did think of a different arc or a different storyline, do you still keep the one that you had and then just build it in, or like what's that process look like?
Actually,
For you.
Guardians of Aleum is a great example for that. I did not originally intend for that to happen. I knew that I needed to be able to tell some of the history in the Omenverse, and I know that I needed to have this group at the very end to help deal with the apocalypse. But I had no idea what I was going to do with that. I just had the set few titles I was going to work on, and then one day it just occurred to me. I got this idea. In the Bible, it talks about when Jesus was crucified, like the sun went black and there was a storm and the dead rise from the grave and all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, what would happen if even more went on with that? What if when Jesus died, it actually broke time? That thunderclap that we heard in the sky, what if that was actually time splintering apart? And then I was like, okay, so I went to Steve and I said, hey, Steve, I got this idea. So, and that's when I came up with this little D&D group.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, I knew that the first character that it was going to be was basically Longinus. I knew that's who it was going to be, because he had the epicenter is around the person who broke it. Who broke it? The guy who speared Christ in the side. Right. So that was him. So I knew I had that character, and then I just kind of did my own version with him. I gave him like my own name. His name is Marius. And then it's like, okay, who else would be around during that period of time? That would be mixed up with this. Mike kind of had some guidelines about what he wanted to see. Like in terms of general things. I know he wanted a couple of Romans, a couple of people that were native to Jerusalem. Somebody that was Greek, I think. Somebody, and all that kind of came together. And so the idea was, okay, let's create a group that is full of all different walks of life, that are different perspectives of the same event, and they all see everything completely differently, and they're forced together to try to fix it, and they're stuck with it. And so that's kind of where all that came from. And I kind of used the whole D&D party setup to make that work. So yeah, there's a thief, there's a cleric, there's a mage, there's an archer, all that.
That's awesome.
It was all Pontius Pilate's fault. All Pontius Pilate guy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. What was that?
It was all Pontius Pilate's fault.
Yeah.
Oh, he does not get off scot-free in this.
Good.
So, Mike and Steve, before we wrap up here, where can people find, Omenverse and Revelation comics at?
You can find both Omen comics and Revelation comics on Global Comics. And what's awesome is not only can you pick up a PDF for $2.99, they're all free to read, so you can check them out before you buy them and stuff. You can also pick up physical copies at the Wicked Publishing store at wickedpublishing.net for only $5.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's
all right,
awesome.
we'll have those links in the video description, and if you're listening on the podcast, they'll be in the show notes. So, hey, Mike, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you joining us. And everybody, please go over to Global Comics and check out their comics. Or if you're like Paul and you have to have the physical, we'll have the link over to where to order those as well. So, all right, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man.
Thank you.
We absolutely love bringing you guys these books that you might not be aware of, and our whole goal is to help the independent creator get the word out about their books. So you help us out by clicking like and subscribe and the notification buttons, so we can keep bringing you great content like this and helping to highlight those indie creators. Thanks.